cancer is your body going into overdrive. Bad cells rapidly dividing, muscling themselves in between the normal ones, devastating them, decimating tissue. Sometimes these rogue cells slow down and take their time. April 2010. For someone in your demographic, the specialist says, given your age and sex, you may either have leukemia or lymphoma. The small exam room begins to expand, the syllables stretching between us. Lymphoma, leukemia. My vision and hearing are tunneling. Have you had any night sweats or fevers, he asks. No. You look confused, he says. I'm not, I tell him. But I don't say that I'm trying not to fucking crumble. Leukemia begins in the bone marrow, lymphoma the lymph glands. In other words, the system designed to protect the body shuts down. When I tell my mom the news, I have to be careful. I say something like, the specialist thinks that the swelling in my neck might be cancerous. It needs to be removed, biopsied, totally common procedure. I don't say cancer. Instead, I emphasize the suffix cancerous, as if that meant hope in Latin. We say nothing. I look at her the way I used to as a little girl, when I thought I had done something wrong. When she opens her arms, I shamble toward her. I'm 32 years old, and as the eldest daughter, I've helped carry our small family. I realize, though, I need her more than ever. She holds me, and we break down together. The lymphatic system keeps the body healthy, but overzealous cells gather in a mass, steadily, until the bloodstream is corrupted. The riot, now cancer. I'm diagnosed with stage 2B Hodgkin's lymphoma. Stage 2 because the cancer hasn't spread below my diaphragm, B for exhibiting physical symptoms. The night sweats and fevers finally show up. I email my network with the subject line, good news, I have a polite, gentler Hodgkin's. I don't have insurance, so I can't start chemo. I was recently laid off, I couldn't afford Cobra, and I was denied emergency Medi-Cal. But I'm on UCSD's charity case list. The oncologist says I should be okay. The cancer has only been growing for about a year. A month or two delay isn't so bad. Mom is desperate for me to get started, so she announces that she's going to sell the car she recently purchased. I tell her no. She's only a nurse's assistant, and she worked so hard for it. I assure her that we can figure something out. She doesn't know that I cleaned out my savings to get staged. There's nothing to do but wait. Lymphoma is the most common blood cancer. Although Hodgkin's is the least common of the blood cancers, it's the most successfully treated. I'm losing my mind, so I go to yoga. I try to be present. But all I can think about is how much I want to be normal again. I was never happy with my body. Maybe this was my punishment. I look at other women, the young and nubile, the exaggerated cat-cow poses, arched backs and backsides moving like sultry sine waves. My own body is angular and bony. I prefer corpse pose. I try to forget the bodies around me that I envy and covet. Now is not the time or the place. Here's the reality. Diseased blood is coursing through me, ravaging me inside out. I am cancer embodied. I feel ugly and sick, defeated. Mom prepares my meals. She helps me bathe and dress. I can't stand to look at or touch my own body. How emaciated I've become. How gaunt my face is, accentuating features I hate. I cry almost every day. Mom comforts me. I think I am dying, but I don't tell her that. I regress instead. I'm a child again. May 2010. It's been a month since my diagnosis, and Mom tells me that Uncle Art has leukemia. This is completely unexpected. Blood cancers aren't known to be hereditary, which is fine because we aren't blood relatives. He's Mom's favorite uncle who's married to Mom's favorite aunt. But what really troubles me is that right underneath the shock, a memory from 20 years ago resurfaces. Garden Grove, California, Uncle Art and Auntie Sarah's home. The family took off for an early Christmas mass, leaving behind my younger sister and me to sleep in. I was also on turkey duty. At the appointed time, I ran downstairs and into the kitchen, and the very moment I leaned over and peeked into the oven, Uncle Art waltzed up behind me. I didn't know he had stayed behind, and slipped his weathered hand underneath my very plain, oversized t-shirt and held my very underdeveloped 13-year-old breast. I jumped, caught between a hot oven and an overheated 57-year-old man. He asked me if it was done. I assumed he meant the turkey. I sort of cleared my throat and managed to say something. I made some excuse to escape, ran back up the stairs, and hid under the covers, my sister still asleep. And I just laid there hoping he hadn't followed me. I never told Mom what happened. I was ashamed. And it isn't exactly an appropriate time to confess. I remembered that he had had a triple bypass. He could have been heavily medicated, or perhaps he acted out of a post-surgery depression, not sexual frustration. And sure, he was always too affectionate, kissing us on the lips when we greeted him, tickling us. But it wasn't that big of a deal. He was just being nice. I mean, every family had that uncle. But maybe he felt like he was dying, blindsided by his mortality, that he was slipping through the cracks. Perhaps that fateful morning, he simply needed something to hang on to, something to live for. And if it had to be my barely developed breast, then who am I to judge? I mean, I wasn't even hot enough to arouse old men. I was no Lolita. I was just a dorky teenager. I should have been thankful for getting to second base, even though it was only a quick grab. Somehow I also felt embarrassed by that moment because I had my defenses down. I was unshowered, dressed in ugly house clothes. I felt my ugliest. And then I think, shit, my self-esteem is so fucked up that I don't even think I'm good enough to molest. This very awkward moment bubbles up, and I'm forced to face my poor self-image of all things. People like to claim that when something like cancer befalls you, you start appreciating the smaller things in life, that what you worried about before isn't all that important in the grander scheme. But to me, that's bullshit. Because everything was magnified. Everything collapsed, commingled, coexisted. Because my having cancer at 32 with the body issues, the financial troubles, feeling like I let my family down, and knowing about Uncle Art leaves no room for the little things. Both leukemia and lymphoma result from problems with white blood cells. Some days pass, and now Mom is on the phone with Uncle Art. He's in the hospital. She wants me to talk to him. But what do I say to a man who is possibly on his deathbed and with whom I now share too much? Someone whose reputation I could besmirch, but how could I? Why would I ever? When I greet him, his voice is so small, like he's at the far end of a tunnel. I can't hear him, and asking him to repeat feels rude. I imagine him hooked up to machines, IVs snaking around him, his collapsed body on starchy hospital bedding. Will this be me too, I think? I feel guilty. Perhaps he was truly dying now. I tell him to feel better soon, that I love him. I'm not sure why. Cancer makes you do weird things. Some weeks pass, and Uncle Art is getting worse, so Mom is flying to Florida to visit him. She doesn't want to leave me, but I tell her I'll be fine. But while she's away for a week, I wake up every other morning staving off low-grade fevers, taking Tylenol with a bowl of multigrain Cheerios and soy milk. The fevers are so bad that after reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy and having Popeyes for dinner, even though I swore I'd start eating raw and organic, I dream about Filipino cult members trying to eat me, about a brown river filled with dead men, about a 5-year-old me stepping out of my favorite photograph with my grandfather, telling me that everything is going to be okay. When I wake up, I'm freaking the fuck out. I can't breathe. Everything aches. My body has no more room to worry about Uncle Art, and I feel shitty about that. But what I want is my mother. July 2010. I finally start chemo. In my desperation to feel a connection with someone going through the same shit, I ask Mom about Uncle Art. She hesitates, tells me he didn't make it. There were too many complications, including his old age. She says that when she went to Florida, she was actually helping with the funeral and consoling Auntie Sarah. And it sinks in. He died before I even started treatments. He was dying. He was dying when I thought I was dying. He was disappearing when I felt myself disappearing. Our bodies slipping away from us, families hanging on to us, like we were dying together. But we weren't. He was in hospice, much farther down the tunnel, so far, far away from me. Why didn't you tell me, I ask. I wanted you to have hope, she says, to get better. But I think she was protecting herself as much as she was trying to protect me. To forgive herself for my getting sick. It should be me, she said when I first caught her crying alone. I should have cancer, not you, not my first baby. I think not telling me was her way of regaining control over the unexplainable, a totally fucked up situation. I can't really blame her. Only after we are utterly destroyed do we realize what we value and the lines we are willing to cross. Thank you.